truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes, and accordingly, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. The world is waking up, and this is the tipping point. Ladies and gentlemen, Scott McKay coming to you live. We are live tonight. We're doing a stream tonight for the address. See what Trump is going to bring out to the nation. We are going to hang out and watch it here so we can just go right from his address to the nation, right to his address into commentary. Juan is going to be joining me here tonight. It appears that this information may very well be about Venezuela. May also be about the elections. I'm not sure. That's just a little bit of information I got today. And we'll see what actually happens here as he starts the message. I don't know if this is going to be a short 15-minute address or if it's going to be an hour. We're just going to kind of play it by ear. But what we'll do is we're going to live stream it right here. As soon as it starts, we're going to kind of step off to the side, sit on the bench, and watch what he has to say. You know, a couple of things I want to throw out there. There's two things that have been weighing pretty heavily on my mind. One is kind of surface. The other one is a little deeper. And the deep side of it is this growing sentiment in the country about this Muslim invasion. And I even hate to talk like this or talk about this because it's not even a term that I would want to use. I wouldn't even want to specifically focus on a particular religion, but I'm going to tell you something. The conclusion that I have now drawn, and we're probably going to get hit pretty hard. And I mean, you can only call me so many names. The knuckleheads out there are going to call me so many names, but I don't really give a shit. They're all dime stores. You know what that means? Dime store douchebags. They have nothing to offer the world. But their reaction typically is that you're a bad person for being an observer and looking at details, facts, and pointing things out so people can make their own minds up. But the simple fact is that, in fact, I'm gonna segue for a second to something Laura Logan told me weeks ago. Whenever I went to an event that she was part of with Judd Saul, raising money to help continue to fund his operation, saving thousands and thousands of Christians in Nigeria from being slaughtered by these Muslim radicals. And they're doing it systematically and systemically with the support of the president of Nigeria. Unfortunately, that being said, she said, we were talking about her experiences in that world. And she said, she was with a group of clerics, might have been in Afghanistan or Iraq. She was obviously a young reporter, a very brave one. I don't know anybody braver than that girl. Having gone into these unbelievable war zones looking like she does. I mean, she's a candidate to be raped by any of these animals at any time, which she ended up having that happen to her when Muslim Brotherhood had overthrown the Mubarak regime at the behest of the clowns in America. Obama facilitated that to overthrow this government. Egypt was doing pretty well economically at that time. I've talked to people who came from Cairo to the States probably 10 years ago. One time, and he was telling me, I asked him about why you pumping gas here, and it's because it's the only thing he could do. He had to get out of the country. The economy was doing pretty good. The U.S. had been supporting for decades, helping keep Middle East peace. Hosni Mubarak gets overthrown by the Muslim Brotherhood, and they come in and do what they do, and they destroy the economy. They're suffering there even today. You got dogs, starving dogs running through the city streets, trash everywhere in Cairo. It's a debacle. It hasn't been undone. They actually General al-Sisi ended up overthrowing a constitutional military coup, overthrew the Muslim Brotherhood and put Morsi in jail, who was their leader. And unfortunately, the Muslim Brotherhood is active, and that is what Obama brought into this country en masse during his administration. Michelle Bachmann took a beating, Congressman Bachmann, by trying to out them to the world. And of course, the shitheads in Congress, outside of people like her, did nothing about it. They've been not only asleep at the wheel, Republicans, Democrats, senators, congressmen alike, they've been helping this invasion happen. That's why I tell you every day, they're all scumbags. They're absolute rancid scumbags, the DC political crowd. They've let this country be virtually overrun. And a lot of bad shit's been happening for years, not just because of the Democrats. It's all of them. If they don't like what's going on there, they should be raising hell like I do in the public forum, but they don't. They want their paycheck, they want their Georgetown dinners, and they want their ass kissed by everybody on earth because they're a congressman or senator. So they leave the job up to me. But that's one thing. Another thing is the whole Rob Reiner thing. I saw Mike Jaco covering a couple things today on from yesterday on Rob Reiner being murdered by his son. It's kind of bizarre. We're supposed to be kind and decent about it, but honestly, I have no kindness or decency for this guy. Mike had pulled up a lot. We know he's a left-wing radical, trashing Trump, telling us MAGA people go fuck yourselves on Twitter. Like, go, all you MAGA people go fuck yourselves. I mean, that kind of vitriol coming out of a scumbag like this guy who's come through the industry, and you know what goes on in that industry at its highest levels. And I know people see good side. Ron was on the other night, Ron Moss, and he's had experiences with not Carl Reiner, but Rob Reiner for years. Very nice guy, wonderful guy. And I'm sure he is to the right people. If there are people in Hollywood that have power or influence or general recognition, of course, those people are nice. But I've been around people in that industry that aren't, and I've seen the way they've treated other people. And I've actually fired, I think, 2 clients when I was out there. They were these kind of people. They were in the entertainment industry and just treat people ruthlessly like shit. I'm like, I'm done with this guy. So he doesn't deserve any respect from me after how he's attacked us literally since 2015 for over 10 years. Clowns like him just attacking us constantly. Well, guess what? The world that he grew up in, the world he was part of and he fostered, basically is what came to his doorstep one night and put an end to all of it. We'll see what happens in the news and get the details in time. But I don't have any love lost for this guy being exited. There's a lot of people that are being exited out of Hollywood, and we know this is an operation in many ways, whether that was something planned in some way, shape, or form, or if this just happened organically. He was going to be going anyways because of what he had come up in the industry doing to that world. But looking to see if we have any coverage coming up yet on Trump's address. It's supposed to be at 9:00. I'm going to just kind of peek around here a little bit. I'm going to see where you all are. I got to jump in here into the show. And I got two mice here, 2 mouses, 2 mice. One works, one sometimes doesn't. So I keep an extra one on hand. Okay. Coming up, Trump address to the nation. I'm going to look around a little bit here and see what I can see. I guess we're getting ready to go. I have no volume over here. I cannot hear anything.
Which caused prices to be higher than ever before, making life unaffordable for millions and millions of Americans. This happened during a Democrat administration, and it's when we first began hearing the word affordability. Our border was open, and because of this, our country was being invaded by an army of 25 million people, many who came from prisons and jails, mental institutions, and insane asylums. They were drug dealers, gang members, and even 11,888 murderers, more than 50% of whom killed more than one person. This is what the Biden administration allowed to happen to our country, and it can never be allowed to happen again. We had men playing in women's sports, transgender for everybody, crime at record levels with law enforcement, and words such as that just absolutely forbidden. We had the worst trade deals ever made, and our country was laughed at from all over the world. But they're not laughing anymore. Over the past 11 months, we have brought more positive change to Washington than any administration in American history. There has never been anything like it, and I think most would agree. I was elected in a landslide, winning the popular vote and all 7 swing states and everything else, with a mandate to take on a sick and corrupt system that really just took the wealth from people and crushed the dreams of the American people. For the last 4 years, the United States was ruled by politicians who fought only for insiders, illegal aliens, career criminals, corporate lobbyists, prisoners, terrorists, and above all, foreign nations, which took advantage of us at levels never seen before. They flooded your cities and towns with illegal aliens. They decimated your hard-earned savings. They indoctrinated your children with hate for America. They just released a level of violent felons that we had never seen to prey on innocent. They caused war. They caused mayhem. They caused a horrible situation all over the globe. But now you have a president who fights for the law-abiding, hardworking people of our country, the ones who make this nation run, who make this nation work. And after just 1 year, we have achieved more than anyone could have imagined. Starting on day one, I took immediate action to stop the invasion of our southern border. For the past 7 months, 0 illegal aliens have been allowed into our country, a feat which everyone said was absolutely impossible. Do you remember when Joe Biden said that he needed Congress to pass legislation to help close the border? He was always blaming Congress and everyone else. As it turned out, we didn't need legislation. We just needed a new president. We inherited the worst border anywhere in the world, and we quickly turned it into the strongest border in the history of our country. In other words, in a few short months, we went from worst to best. We're deporting criminals, restoring safety to our most dangerous cities. Just take a look at Washington, D.C. It's at levels of safety that we've never seen before. And they decimated the bloodthirsty foreign drug cartels. We did that all by ourselves with our people, and we're so proud of it because they were poisoning and destroying our population. Drugs brought in by ocean and by sea are now down 94%. We have broken the grip of sinister woke radicals in our schools, and control over those schools is back now in the hands of our great and loving states where education belongs. After rebuilding the United States military in my first term, and with the addition we are adding right now, we have the most powerful military anywhere in the world, and it's not even close. I've restored American strength, settled 8 wars in 10 months, destroyed the Iran nuclear threat, and ended the war in Gaza, bringing for the first time in 3,000 years peace to the Middle East, and secured the release of the hostages, both living and dead. Here at home, we're bringing our economy back from the brink of ruin. The last administration and their allies in Congress looted our treasury for trillions of dollars, driving up prices and everything at levels never seen before. I am bringing those high prices down and bringing them down very fast. Let's look at the facts. Under the Biden administration, car prices rose 22% and in many states 30% or more. Gasoline rose 30 to 50%. Hotel rates rose 37%. Airfares rose 31%. Now, under our leadership, they are all coming down and coming down fast. Democrat politicians also sent the cost of groceries soaring, but we are solving that too. The price of a Thanksgiving turkey was down 33% compared to the Biden last year. The price of eggs is down 82% since March, and everything else is falling rapidly. and it's not done yet. But boy, are we making progress. Nobody can believe what's going on. Here are just some of the efforts that we have underway. You will see in your wallets and bank accounts in the new year. After years of record-setting falling incomes, our policies are boosting take-home pay at a historic pace. Under Biden, real wages plummeted by $3,000. Under Trump, the typical factory worker has seen a wage increase of $1,300. For construction workers, it's $1,800. For miners, we're bringing back clean, beautiful coal. It's $3,300. And for the first time in years, wages are rising much faster than inflation. Remember that. The wages, just look at it. Wages are going up much faster than inflation. How big is that? Very importantly, there are more people working today than at any time in American history, and 100% of all jobs created since I took office have been in the private sector. Think of that. 100% of all jobs have been in the private sector rather than government, which is the only way to make a country powerful and great. This historic trend will continue. Already, I've secured a record-breaking $18 trillion of investment into the United States, which means jobs, wage increases, growth, factory openings, and far greater national security. Much of this success has been accomplished by tariffs. My favorite word, tariffs, which for many decades have been used successfully by other countries against us, but not anymore. Companies know that if they build in America, there are no tariffs, and that's why they're coming home to the USA in record numbers. They're building factories and plants at levels we haven't seen, AI, automobiles. We're doing what nobody thought was even possible, not even remotely possible. There has never, frankly, been anything like it. 1 year ago, our country was dead. We were absolutely dead. Our country was ready to fail, totally failed. Now, we're the hottest country anywhere in the world, and that's said by every single leader that I've spoken to over the last 5 months. Next year, you will also see the results of the largest tax cuts in American history that were really accomplished through our great, big, beautiful bill, perhaps the most sweeping legislation ever passed in Congress. We wrapped 12 different bills up into one beautiful bill. That includes no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security for our great seniors. Under these cuts, many families will be saving between $11,000 and $20,000 a year, and next spring is projected to be the largest tax refund season of all time. Because of tariffs, along with the just passed One Big Beautiful Bill, tonight I am also proud to announce that more than 1,450,000, think of this, 1,450,000 military service members will receive a special, we call Warrior Dividend before Christmas, a Warrior Dividend. In honor of our nation's founding in 1776, we are sending every soldier $1,776. Think of that. And the checks are already on the way. Nobody understood that one until about 30 minutes ago. We made a lot more money than anybody thought because of tariffs, and the bill helped us along. Nobody deserves it more than our military, and I say congratulations to everybody. And by the way, we now have record enlistment in our military, and last year we had among the worst recruitment numbers in our military's history. What a difference a year makes. In addition, I'm doing what no politician of either party has ever done, standing up to the special interests to dramatically reduce the price of prescription drugs. I negotiated directly with the drug companies and foreign nations, which were taking advantage of our country for many decades, to slash prices on drugs and pharmaceuticals by as much as 400, 500, and even 600%. In other words, your drug costs will be plummeting downward. And I used the threat of tariffs to get foreign countries who would never have done it to pay the cost of this giant dollar reduction. They stopped ripping us off, and it began as of 4 days ago. There has never been anything like this in the history of our country. Drugs have only gone up, but now they'll be going down by numbers never conceived possible. It's called most favored nation, and no president has ever had the courage or ability to get this done until now. The first of these unprecedented price reductions will be available starting in January through a new website, TrumpRx.gov. And these big price cuts will greatly reduce the cost of health care. I'm also taking on the gigantic health insurance companies that have gotten rich on billions of dollars of money that should go directly to the people. The money should go to the people. That's you. So they can buy their own health insurance, which will give far better benefits at much lower cost. It will be far better health insurance. The current Unaffordable Care Act was created to make insurance companies rich. It was bad health care at much too high a cost. And you see that now in the steep increase in premiums being demanded by the Democrats, and they are demanding those increases, and it's their fault. It is not the Republicans' fault. It's the Democrats' fault. It's the Unaffordable Care Act, and everybody knew it. Again, I want the money to go directly to the people so you can buy your own health care. You'll get much better health care at a much lower price. The only losers will be insurance companies that have gotten rich and the Democrat Party, which is totally controlled by those same insurance companies. They will not be happy, but that's okay with me because you, the people, are finally going to be getting great health care at a lower cost. Another major focus is the cost of energy. For years, the radical left Democrats exploited the green energy scam as an excuse to funnel many billions of dollars into their own massive slush funds as their energy restrictions drastically drove up prices, and they drove them up at record levels. Electricity costs surged 30 to 100% under Biden, and the typical family lost $5,000 to $10,000 in higher energy costs. Think of that, $5,000 to $10,000 you lost. On day one, I declared a national energy emergency. Gasoline is now under $2.50 a gallon in much of the country. In some states, it, by the way, just hit $1.99 a gallon. And within the next 12 months, we will have opened 1,600 new electrical generating plants, a record, and it's a record that won't be beaten by practically, I would say, by anybody, or certainly not very soon. Prices on electricity and everything else will fall dramatically. The Democrat inflation disaster, again, the worst in the history of our country, also robbed millions of Americans of home ownership and indeed the American dream. The yearly cost of a typical new mortgage increased by $15,000 under Democrat rule. In 11 months, we've already gotten that annual cost down by $3,000, and it's coming down a lot lower. Wait till you see. The numbers are going to be shocking. And I'll soon announce our next chairman of the Federal Reserve, someone who believes in lower interest rates by a lot, and mortgage payments will be coming down even further. Early the new year, and you will see this, in the new year, I will announce some of the most aggressive housing reform plans in American history. A major factor in driving up housing costs was the colossal border invasion. We have never been invaded. This is the worst thing that, frankly, in my opinion, the worst thing that the Biden administration did to our country is the invasion at the border. The last administration and their allies in Congress brought in millions and millions of migrants and gave them taxpayer-funded housing while your rent and housing costs skyrocketed. Over 60% of growth in the rental market came from foreign migrants. At the same time, illegal aliens stole American jobs and flooded emergency rooms, getting free health care and education paid for by you, the American taxpayer. They also increased the cost of law enforcement by numbers so high that they are not even to be mentioned. For the first time in 50 years, we are now seeing reverse migration as migrants go back home, leaving more housing and more jobs for Americans. In the year before my election, all net creation of jobs was going to foreign migrants. Since I took office, 100% of all net job creation has gone to American born citizens, 100%. In the end, government either serves the productive, patriotic, hardworking American citizen, or it serves those who break the laws, cheat the system, and seek power and profit at the expense of our nation. Look at Minnesota, where Somalians have taken over the economics of the state and have stolen billions and billions of dollars from Minnesota and indeed from the United States of America. And we're going to put an end to it. For so long as before my election, the vast majority of good and decent Americans were forced to watch as corrupt politicians plundered the halls of power, exploited our taxpayers, and pillaged every system that makes civilized society function. But not anymore, and you see that every day, not anymore. We're putting America first, and we are making America great again. Very simple. We are making America great again. Tonight, after 11 months, our border is secure. Inflation is stopped. Wages are up. Prices are down. Our nation is strong. America is respected. And our country is back, stronger than ever before. We're poised for an economic boom, the likes of which the world has never seen. Soon we will host the World Cup and the Olympics, both of which I got. But most importantly, we will celebrate the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. There could be no more fitting tribute to this epic milestone than to complete the comeback of America that began just 1 year ago. When the world looks at us next year, let them see a nation that is loyal to its citizens, faithful to its workers, confident to its identity, certain to its destiny, and the envy of the entire globe. We are respected again like we have never been respected before. To each and every one of you, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. God bless you all.
Talked about tonight, I thought maybe he was going to bring up Venezuela based on a conversation I had earlier. But it looks like it was just a general address to remind the people of everything that he's accomplished in a year. There's one thing that he said, and it kind of provoked something in my mind, and I'm going to talk about it in terms of economics so we understand how it works. He's been in for a year, and I kind of sometimes I watch the threads, they chat, or I listen to other people talking, whether it's in social media or elsewhere on videos that are talking about Trump's been in power this amount of time. These things haven't happened. This hasn't happened yet. And what I want to say is what I've been saying for the last number of years. This entire operation is a slow rollout because there are still people that need to see a repetition of these exposures and events that are taking place that we're overly ready for. And some have come to us. They're behind us. We got more coming. But to get some of these people that are the zombies, the walking dead, it's going to take example after example after example after example, because there has to be a pattern established when your brain is so fused, when your brain has a filing system like the old, I'm trying to think of what they were whenever we were in school. When I was a kid, we had drawers with a card for a library book, and can't remember that system, the name of it. Anyways, every card, somebody took a book out, they had to write their name in a card, put it back in a filing cabinet, and that's how the library kept track of who had what. But that system is kind of like the way your brain works. You have these what are called engrams in your brain. They're like plates. Imagine a plate having information welded or fused onto it or lasered onto it. Plate goes back into its, vertical file, and it sits there forever. It's in your brain. And your brain maybe has the recall power to bring it back to the forefront, or it doesn't. Every memory, everything that's ever happened to you is seared into these engram plates in your brain, in its neurological structure. Now, whether you have the recall power or not to remember all of it, most of us obviously don't, but everything is there recorded in living color. And that's really what I think in the case of these people that their mindsets welded to Trump being a bad guy, or number two, this isn't happening fast enough. There has to be continuous repetition to unwind the grip that all that information has, as it has been solidified in everybody's everyday thinking, because they're bombarded every single day. And look how it is now. We were bombarded when I was a kid, but again, it wasn't like this. We had newspapers, we had magazines, you had radio, you had TV. Way different, because now just the internet itself, throw into the mix social media, it's a constant barrage of propaganda coming at us. If you look at a gas pump, you can't even get away from these things at a gas pump. You got to listen to commercials on video screens when you're trying to get fuel. They're always trying to program you to buy shit. They're selling you stuff. So it's a different wake up call for a lot of people that are younger than me, younger than we are. But here's the thing in terms of the economic side of all this. People are complaining like, how come this isn't better? Or, there's not more money flowing now. This is how it was in 1979. The election, I remember the 80 election. It was when Reagan came on. Reagan brought us to the largest or longest period of peacetime prosperity in country's history up to that point, post World War II. And it was because of the tax policies that he put in place. Now, when he's elected in 1980, he's taken power in January 23rd, 1980 actually, or 1981. So because he had a massive landslide, won every state, I guess, but one, Reagan had a mandate, which means the country wanted Reagan's plan in place. Every congressman and senators on notice. That much of a landslide, they better not push up against them, because they could cost them their seat in the next election if they don't support what America showed in mass that they wanted. These dipshits, anyways, will, as the cowards that they are, they won't stand their ground, and they will buckle like they all did, Republicans and Democrats alike. Anyways, so it was 1981 before legislation even started to be passed, and it was late 81. So the tax cuts that Reagan brought were the largest tax cuts in U.S. history. So here we are now in 1983, and the full force of the tax cuts had not come into play yet. So the economy still was struggling in 1983, going into the 1984 election. And of course, you would naturally feel that pressure, because people would be asking, hey, it's been a couple of years now. Things haven't really gotten as better as we thought they would, or as fast. Well, the reason is it takes time for, number one, these tax cuts to kick in and also to work. And I'm going to explain the laws of economies of scale when you're trying to put an economy back online. The difference between the 80s economy and the economy today is that the 80s economy was built on hard capital assets. Today's economy is built on digital, electronic transfer, valuation protocols, you name it. So the big difference is this. Back then, if somebody made a mistake in business, and it's why businesses, I think, ran more efficiently. If somebody made a mistake in business, and it could cost you big time, because if your revenue dropped, then that led to having to lay people off. It would lead to possibly closing down plants or whatever, and these are capital intensive businesses, meaning even if you lay people off, you got to shut down a plant. You still have overhead. You got to keep power on. You're paying likely property taxes, everything else that plant requires to at least stay viable, even though it's shut down for production. So, and then if there's a catastrophic situation in a company that lasts too long, the company can go bankrupt. The difference between then and today is this. You can have billions of dollars wiped out in your asset, your stock portfolio. Some people do. Look at Zuckerberg. Oh, he lost 15 billion in valuation today. What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. These are perceived value. He has perceived value of what that company's worth. Meta, DARPA's project that they handed over him and made him the puppet to make him look like he's the one that actually created it. It's absurd. We now know he didn't. But the reality is, when politicians create policy that affect businesses that are capital intensive, the damage is long-term or permanent, because that means it affects a company. They could lay people off, have to shut down a plant, sell it off, or whatever. Now somebody brings in good tax policy, it doesn't come on as quickly as it went away. Because again, you're talking capital intensive businesses and markets, meaning you've got to build a factory. You now have to go through the process of everything that it takes, setting up the supply chain, dealing with logistics, inventory, all of this stuff. It's a steel mill, multiply that times 100. So once that goes down, it isn't coming back ever. Or if it does, it's going to take a long time. That's what keeps economies growing slowly. Certainly after the right policies are implemented, it takes a couple of years. In this day and age, we're so used to somebody sells a company, does an IPO in a couple of years, they're worth billions. It's absurd. It's just truly absurd that for such a minimal amount of work, such great rewards can be made because, up until the late 80s and mid 90s, to create major, massive wealth, it took many, many years because everything was capital intensive. A lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of building, all of that. Not the case today. Now it can come, it can go, it can rise and fall very quickly. From the tax incentive side of it, coming out of Washington or coming out of the White House, again, doesn't matter what the business is. It could be either more modern digital type businesses that are operating somewhat in cyberspace, or they're capital intensive buildings on top of real estate and all the infrastructure that goes with creating whatever they create. Different ball game, but still the economic policies that come out of Washington can devastate both of them. We saw what happened with all the green companies that came on under Obama. The economy's taken a beating. You throw a green company in there that's heavily subsidized, and they certainly didn't have enough time, number one, to build the infrastructure, the hard assets, let alone learn how to actually run companies. Running a company when it's small is way different than when it gets big. It's a whole different mindset. In fact, a guy said to me one time, he said, Scott, he said, in a particular industry, he said, in this particular industry that he's in, he says, you don't even get a ticket to the dance until you hit 500 million in revenue per year, yearly revenue. He said, you don't even get a ticket to the dance. He said, very few companies ever go from 500 million into the billions. He said, because it takes a whole different mindset. One being, you got $500 million operation. You don't have to work anymore. So your motivation for achieving financial freedom, success in a business, a company, or wealth, that has already been accomplished. I mean, really, what can you do if you have a $500 million net worth? You could go out and live your life, which is what most people should be able to do. You want to relax a bit. You probably put extraordinary amount of your life into this thing, missed a lot of things, could be part of your time with your family, the kids, all those things. So naturally, that's what you're going to want to do. To get over that, to get into the $1 billion mark, it takes a whole different motivation, because now it's about a purpose. It's about a long-term mission, because again, you don't have to do this. You should be able to go enjoy your life. If you're going to go from 500 million upward into the billions in valuation, your dedication has to be off the chart, because that means you're going to have to take on more responsibility, put more time in managing a bigger operation and managing in a different way, because now you're not managing employees. Now you're managing managers. That's a whole new ballgame. That is a different dynamic. It's a whole new dynamic, a more complex dynamic when you're now training managers. And then as the company continues to grow, then your training of managers becomes training managers how to train other managers to manage the operation. So it becomes a multi-tiered evolution of understanding that changes in running anything. Government is no different when it comes to economic policy. There's a lot of people learn stuff on the job based on their policies. We have one president that doesn't, because he came from the business world. And like Calvin Coolidge said in his time as a presidency, he said, look, the business of America is business. Leave it alone. The business of America is business. That's what Trump understands. He understands what it takes to take an operation, found it, get it built, staff it, open it, have it succeed, extend or expand it, and it continued to be an empire, a business empire. And the mindset that it takes to manage something that's much bigger, or multiple factions of it, is kind of like dealing with government, kind of like dealing with the knuckleheads in Congress, in the Senate and the House. So we don't have a more capable or qualified leader in this country, as far as I'm concerned. The last person that had this type of a wingspan that could nowhere match what Trump can do was Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan obviously was a Hollywood actor. Once he was done with that career, he ended up being a traveling speaker for General Electric, traveling around the country, meeting all the people working for General Electric, all the blue collar people, meeting with them, talking about General Electric. And over time, he got a chance to see America from the lower or the middle class demographic and started to understand the country better, understand how an economy really works. He was a Democrat. And of course, then he ended up changing his party affiliation to the Republican Party. People are saying, giving him shit because he left the Democratic Party. He said, I didn't leave the Democratic Party. It left me. I mean, look where they are today. So didn't agree with, his ideas and philosophy on economics. So with that being said, the difference is that Trump has managed massive budgets in his career and his time. So when you're looking at this one, it's the biggest corporation in the world. It's the largest revenue stream of any corporation on the planet. That's the United States corporation, which we know is now defunct and basically dismantled. However, the machine is still that big. So it takes time for all the mechanics to get to high speed, and also for infrastructure that creates revenue to be built. It takes a couple of years. So those who complain that it hasn't happened fast enough, well, let's face it, it isn't happening fast enough for a lot of people, but it is what it is, and it is coming. My guess is, depending on how early he announces next year, the things we believe are going to unfold during this year coming up, depending on how early it is, I think that'll determine how quickly this economy turns into a rocket ship. I do believe that's coming. I believe it's coming. I'm not sure what 2026 holds. Love to make those positive predictions, but at the end of the day, I do not have a crystal ball. But what I do believe is going to happen is there is going to be the cataclysmic event of what that may be. Would it be an EBS? Will it be Trump coming out and announcing a number of people that have now been rounded up, picked up, put in Gitmo, whatever? I don't know. I still think there's going to be that type of an event. I still think there's going to be chaos in the country at some point. But I do believe, as Trump said, we're going to be 250 years old complete come 2026, July the 4th. So he said that's the marker when it's going to be better than ever. I expect that'll happen as well. I mean, look what's happening with silver. It's been crazy what's been going on in the last couple of months. I think, man, I'll tell you, 128% increase in silver starting this year. Think of that. You make an investment, and if you're getting 4 or 5% return on your money for any investment, how did I just lose I just lost my page. See if I can find it. I lost my page that I was looking at. Let me see if I can find it. See if this is it. Forget the title of this. It isn't. Yeah, it is gold and silver. Okay, so right now, silver's at $66.72. If you're telling me the economy's not doing well, you sure as hell wouldn't see this happen. So here's where it was 1 year ago, year to date. 1 year ago, silver was $36. Okay. So we're not even a full year in, but $36 to $66, that's nearly a doubling. Having 117% increase in the value of anything, that happening in 1 year is staggering. Year to date, from when silver, from January until now, it's $37.58 on the 1st of January. Now we're at $66. That's a 128% increase. Just in the last 3 months, $63 or 63% increase in 3 months. How about a month? Imagine investing in 1 month later, 30% increase in the value of your investment. That's stupid. That's absolutely stupid. People are excited about 9, 10, 12%. If they got 12% return on their money, be like, this is the best investment I've ever had. We're talking in one. That's in a year's time, by the way. You're talking 1 month, 1 week. Just in 1 week, it's up 6%. I mean, those are respectable numbers. 24 hours. So the economy is obviously starting to pick up major speed. I know Kirk Elliott said he believes that come the third quarter or the first quarter of next year, he believes that we're going to be at $120 to $140 in silver. Now, think about where that is now. I certainly believe it's going to get to 100 just by the tracking I'm seeing and all the other factors that Kirk talks about. Massive electronics manufacturing coming back to the United States, $7 trillion of business investment. It's obviously going to be capital intensive investment, manufacturing, et cetera. And all manufacturing and electrical components require silver. Weapons require silver. I don't know how many hundreds of ounces one Tomahawk missile uses for silver, but it's staggering. And they're not mining enough, and there's not enough supply. That alone means that silver is going to be a supply and demand issue, where silver is likely going to be jumping up dramatically. We'll be with Kirk Elliott tomorrow, by the way. I think that's probably an economic update you're going to want to look at. But the difference between silver, again, is a hard asset versus buying stocks, bonds, all that. I just never saw the value in that kind of a risk. But again, everybody has their own preconceived ideas on what they think would be the best way to go. It's very individual, but when it comes to hard assets, to me, that seems to make the most amount of sense. It looks to me like we got a stranger popped in here. It's going to be joining us. This is the man of the hour. It's rare that we can capture him. He's like an elusive creature that nobody ever sees, like maybe once in a lifetime. But I made a phone call today. I'm like, I'm going to call this dude, see if he wants to jump in. We were going to talk about Tina Peters, which we will tonight, and he was actually going to be available to come on tonight. If I could have climbed through the telephone receiver and kissed a dude on the cheek, I would have. It's impossible to get this guy pinned down and cornered. But brother, it's good to see you. There's the weather in Hawaii right now. Looks like the storm is upon us, from what I can see.
Yeah. Well, actually, we do have. I'm getting an echo, so I hope we're not screwing something up here. And I don't know if it's in my phone or my car.
Might be
So
your
just
car
1
feeding back.
second.
Your car speaker may be feeding
Yeah.
back into your phone.
Let's see if I can get the car.
We're good here. You sound fine here. Looks like I'm frozen and you're frozen. Oh, yeah, you weren't frozen. I was looking at the stream on Rumble. It was frozen. Anyway, so yeah, Juan had reached out to me in the last, I think, 24 hours. Need to talk about Tina Peters. He's going to come back in, talk about Tina Peters. He said, let's get a show up on this. And of course, I reached out to him about that. And then the address was coming up. So we decided what a great time to see what Trump's talking about, and then get Juan's viewpoint on what he's really saying or why this happened to be the message for tonight. But we'll give him a minute to come back in here. Nino must have called him. That's what happened. Nino called him and kicked him off. That's what happened. Nino called, boom, kicked off our live stream with Juan. But here he is. How's the echo?
Seriously, sorry about that. I don't know why the car captures the phone. Sometimes it's a son of a gun. So anyway.
No worries. All good. Glad to have you back. So, we were watching, obviously, we're watching the address tonight. A couple things we want to get your viewpoint on about what he said, why this is what he chose to say at this time of the year. And we'll talk about Tina Peters' situation. But so what did you hear, Juan, what Trump was saying? Was there anything underlying messages there that you got from him based on what he said, or the timing of coming out to have this particular national address tonight?
Well, I will tell you what. I think I said it on several of the shows that I talked on, and then privately, even you and I talking. I didn't want to get ahead of him, and I felt that there was a possibility that he might not go places that people expected him to go. Because we had people saying that he's told Congress he's going to war. Well, he doesn't declare war. So that didn't ring true. And I said that to several people. And then, but he may make an announcement on Venezuela or something. But, I didn't want to get ahead of him. Let him say what he wants to say. And I don't know why we're getting some feedback here. I don't know if it's at my end or yours, so I apologize.
It sounds clean here.
Phoenix can be hard on some of these broadcasts here. So I control. Hold on a second.
Now it is getting a little bit weird. He's
Sign out. I just hit.
Sounds
So
pretty
they're
good.
doing something to solve it. I am here. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
I am here.
Can you hear us?
There we go. How's that?
Keep talking.
You get me now?
Yeah, we hear you. It's a little bit. It's a little disrupted, like a little static.
Don't know what the issue is. No idea what the issue is.
Is that playing through your vehicle, Juan?
Let's see here. There we go. How's that?
It seems okay. Yeah, there's a little static coming through. Are you?
I see you talking, but I don't hear you. Let's see if I can do anything to fix that.
Yeah, I wonder if you killed your Bluetooth coming through the car. It might help.
These guys have a whole different. Yeah, it's just. Let's try this. So, let's try that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's just a matter of getting the right, getting the right setup. I just think his interference may be coming because of the feedback from his car speakers right into his microphone and his phone. That's my guess. Yeah, that too. Let's see what happens. So he's out and in again. So we'll just hang out for a minute, folks. Sorry about that. We need to get his input on what he saw today or what he thought today about tonight. The Man in Black are messing with y'all. It might be Men in Black, yeah. Why is Satan Yahoo allowed to spy on us and crack down anti-Semitism? Yeah, it's a big problem I'm having too, folks. I said this, I think the night before last. The amount of states in the country that have passed laws, you're not allowed to talk, voice your opinion or negative opinions of Israel is a crime. All I'm going to say, folks, now we have Republicans controlling state houses around the country. I can't remember what the number is. I don't pay attention that closely anymore since 2020, since we found they've been stealing all the elections. But I believe there are more Republican state houses in the country than there are Democrat. So if that's the case, how in the fuck are we passing laws violating our First Amendment rights if somebody wants to criticize Israel? Now they pass laws. And this is what I hate about these criminals, these scumbags. They get behind closed doors, and this is what they do. Here we got Juan back.
Yeah, and I don't know what the issue is, bro. It's giving us horrible audio over here.
Juan, are you using your automobile speakers?
Feedback, so I apologize.
Are you using your automobile speakers, Juan? Are you Bluetoothing into your car?
Yeah, it's not my car at this point. I'm strictly on the cell phone. It sounds like it's in your system with reverberation and breaking up. So it's not. I've got great cell signal. That stopped something.
That sounded good.
Yeah, that sounds like 1,000% better. I don't know what got pushed, but
yeah,
something happened. So now let me just see if I can get my speaker to come.
Turned off his earphones. Okay.
Now, is he able
Let's see, give me half a second here. I'm just looking to see if I'm missing anything else. I'm going to go there.
Oh, so you're saying, Lisa, he's got
Well,
wireless earphones?
I'll get by, Scott.
Okay.
I can only hear you slightly, but I got you enough to make the job work. So apologize, folks.
No worries. How's this? Am I coming through loud enough?
Oh, perfect. I mean, I don't know what was going on in the first place. Now you're just like you're next door.
Okay.
If you misbehaved, I could reach over and whack you.
Well, I was going to say, look to your right. I'm sitting in your seat right now beside you, but I have my invisible suit on. Aim
Well,
high.
actually, I've got somebody cuter than you in the seat beside me, but
Well, I already know who that is. I'm not going to debate you on that. I already lost.
yeah.
So,
well, let me help folks on what's going on here. I think Trump, there was a situation on a real estate deal, and he has this guy, wants to, try and do a deal with him, and he's forcing him, and he's, trying to really arm twist him. And so Trump, he's like, well, I'm not going to commit to anything, but I'm willing to look at what you got. I'm willing to do this and that. But let's see where you're at. At the last second, he's ready. He looks like he wants to do the deal. And then they just couldn't get the terms right. He told the guy all along, here's what I'm willing to do. But they spent a lot of time and effort trying to get him to come in about 8 or 9% higher than what he was willing to go. And he told them all along, that's my number. He ended up going with a different contractor, different location that hit his numbers. Think of the John Bolton situation with the drone that was shot down over Iran or next to Iran in airspace that was not Iranian airspace. And they shot it down, and it was the second time it happened. Everybody told Trump he had to go in there, bomb Iran, do all this stuff. He was hesitant to, finally said, okay. Bolton puts this whole thing together with all of his friends and buddies, and they're going to go in there and bomb Iran. He's in the Oval Office, and they've got the paychecks, etc. And all of a sudden, Trump pulls the pen out. He's going to sign the authorization. He says, don't fire a shot till I agree to it. After they're all ready to do it, he stops just before his pen over the page. Hey, how many people do you think are going to die in this raid that we're going to do on Iran right now? And he had told him he wanted minimum human casualties. I want to send him a message. I don't want to kill anybody. And the general there pipes up that about 100 people are their best projection is going to die. And Trump says, gosh, that's the best we can do. And the guy says, well, we think 200 tops, but we've done everything to minimize it. We think it's going to be about 100. Trump says, gosh, I think, how much was that drone? 30 million, sir, but the replacement's going to cost us 35. Okay, and plus there's 2. The public doesn't know about the second one. All right. Well, we're a big country. I think we can afford that. I think one Iranian life is worth more than $30 million. So let's shut it down. Let's try a different way. And he shuts down the whole attack on Iran back in the first administration. What did he really do? He set them up to play all of their cards and show all of their connections. The people who were trying to get him to go to war unnecessarily, in his opinion, prematurely, while there were still other options. And he didn't want to have collateral damage of Iranian civilians. And so he set them all up to get there. I think you're looking at something akin to that with this, what amounts to almost a State of the Union. He gave an assessment, all the things that happened, what the logic was going into it, reassured everybody. His numbers, by many accounts, are the lowest of this term so far. And so was he trying to buoy up those numbers to prepare us for other things? There was all sorts of reports, and I didn't rule it out. I mean, Venezuela, he's been intoning, he's getting ready to do something in Venezuela, but not what most people expected. Go to war. we have a blockade, and a blockade can be more effective than actually dropping a bomb. Uh, so, because it makes it very hard for them to strike back against us over a blockade in the same way. And so I think what you just saw was some type of backroom management to run right up to the edge and get everybody all keyed up in a certain way and then stop. Will he come back to address people about, say, Venezuela? Well, I guarantee you, people down in Venezuela were all puckered up, ready to, they figure we were going to war with them. Lots of people in the military, other places, thought we were going to war. The vote machines, the election, national security matter. There's a lot of stuff in play, and he didn't play those cards, so he held, and he just gave you a report card. Doesn't mean that other stuff isn't coming. He gave you a baseline, and now anybody that wants to second guess him, get ahead of him, is going to have to think about that. The other thing that comes to mind, I was relaying this to people over the last several days, Trump had a speaking engagement. I think I told you this yourself, Scott, earlier today. He had a speaking engagement, and it was some military students. So he was talking with them before he went out on stage, a group of them. And he turns to all of them and he says, how many people do you think in my staff and around me know what I'm going to say today? How many people do you think I've told? And they're looking around, is it 5, 10, 15? And Trump says, 1. Nobody knows what I'm going to say today when I walk out on that stage, except for me. And he did something similar just now. He got them all baited in place because he's playing some chess here. Whether it's Tina, Venezuela, the national election emergency, the next executive order related to elections, which was it? And he didn't to get to this point. Does that click for you, Scott? Do you see how I'm saying that?
Yeah. No, it makes sense. It does make sense because obviously,
Do I still have you? Did I lose you?
I'm here. We can hear you. Can you hear me? I can hear you.
I don't understand what the problem is here.
We're good over here. Yeah, it says he's offline. See what happens. He'll probably try to pop back in. That's kind of strange. I can't imagine. So here's what I figured out is when you're wearing ear pods or something like that, you're going to get feedback from another speaker if it's coming through a car because that car speaker is feeding right into the headset microphones. If you're on a wired system, wired headset, and you got the mic hanging right here, that seems to eliminate that problem. That way, the reason that I travel with one of those wired headsets when I'm running around, because if I get in a situation he's in and I have to do something on my phone, on a Zoom or whatever, I can actually plug those in. You can get you don't have to have it clear, at your mouth, so to speak, where you can't really see what's going on. So we'll give him another minute or two. I don't know exactly the point Juan is making. I don't know exactly where he's leading to from that, but yeah, it makes sense. If these guys are always on edge because they know sooner or later the hammer's coming or the Green Reaper is going to knock on their door, he could have just decided to put out an address like this tonight, just to. If these guys are actually nervous about what's coming to their country, whoever Trump's enemies are, America's enemies are, I assure you, every time he head fakes them by doing something like what he did tonight, it just continues to work up your temperature, make you more nervous. The more nervous you are, the more mistakes you make. And that could be why he addressed what he did tonight in that way. We'll hang out for a couple minutes. We'll see if he can pop back in here. I forget where we were pushing off of whenever Juan came back or came on, but economically, I still think we're going to get an ass beating. I honestly, folks, don't see how we get the country back, but we have a monumental spiritual shift in the country until everybody pays the price for lack of paying attention to what's been done to this country by the politicians, not caring anymore, just accepting that's the way it is. All of that is going to lead to the demise and death of the country. I don't care if it's an animal or a human. If you let things like this go that are a problem, it's always going to take down the host organism. And the US is a host organism, obviously. And if we continue to sit back again and allow this bullshit to continue, it's my greatest frustration in the world is we don't have enough people. People are way too comfortable in this country, even the ones that are very awake. Like I said the other day, going right back to NFL football, going right back to all the worthless nonsense that we spend our time on in our lives, our whole lives, instead of focusing what's important. All these people have returned to that I've seen watching NFL on Sundays. And I think the only thing that yanks us out of it 100% is an economic collapse. And if we believe the transition is coming, something has to come down. Lucky for us, they've been building the parallel system, the quantum financial system alongside. I've been told they're both running now. I don't know if a QFS is running at speed, but it is definitely running. And my guess is they're just going to continue to elevate it in its own capacity or open exposure and keep as they continue to try to bring down the machine, the matrix machine, the banking machine that I expect. So we'll see. I'm still preparing for a collapse. I'm still preparing for these attacks. I don't see how we avoid them. We'll give. Hey, buddy, I just had a great idea how to finish the show.
Yeah.
I got you on microphone right here, right now. So this is gonna be perfect.
Well, I apologize. I don't know what the issue was, but you have great listeners out there, and I assume they kind of kept things going over.
Yeah. We segued until you got back here, but I got the phone up to the microphone. I've done this before, whenever I had issues with people. So you're good, loud and clear now.
Well, you had issues with me?
Never had issues with you. You're perfect.
Oh, okay, all right. I was gonna say because I don't always share my cookies, but I usually get to share a couple with you. So
nope, I have your photograph on my wall right here, right beside Jesus's. So you couldn't be any better.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, they had the good guy on one side of the cross and the bad guy on the other side of the cross. I don't know if that's it. That's sort of. Listen, here's the deal. What I was trying to tell your audience is this: Trump. Oh, now I get another call in. Let me tell my chief of staff.
Tell Nino I'll call him back.
Yeah, no, that's Matt. That's my chief of staff. Okay, so here's the deal. What I think Trump is doing, and he's a master at this. Remember when Bolton, after the Iranians shot down a drone, and this wasn't just any drone. This was a 737 sized drone. Big monster. It cost $30 million, and the Iranians shot it down. It wasn't actually the first drone they'd shot down. The first drone they faked a crash at the top of Mount Shasta of another drone that they shot down, and didn't admit that they got it plastered. And so the second one, you can't let Iran keep shooting their drones down. So Bolton and everybody over at State Department, Pentagon, they all wanted to bomb Iran. So they, pester Trump until he finally says, okay, yeah, we got to do it. Okay, let's go ahead and set it all up. But don't actually launch until I've approved it. And then I want minimum human casualties. But okay, go ahead and get it set up so we can do it. So over the next couple of weeks, they set up this massive hit on Iran. It's going to get all of their, boats and key installations, all sorts of things to teach them a lesson for shooting this drone down. And the day comes, it's afternoon in the States, they're in Washington, D.C., late afternoon, and coming up on midnight in Iran. And so Bolton, a bunch of generals, everybody, an admiral, they're all there in the Situation Room in the White House, all ready to go, Oval Office, actually. And they're waiting for him to sign this thing to let the aircraft take off the carriers. Everything's running. It's ready to go. And Trump pulls his pen out of the Resolute desk, and he gets all ready to sign to authorize this going. And he's got the pen over the paper, and he turns to Bolton and to the general there and says, now this is going to be minimum human casualties, right? I want, the least number of people. I don't want any civilians if possible. Least number of people killed in this. We're sending him a message about killing everybody. And the general, Bolton looks at him. The general types up, yes, sir. Minimum human casualties. Well, what's that number? Well, we think it's going to be about 100, sir. 100? Look, 200 max. Okay, but we think we're going to keep it at about 100. It's just hard to tell, who knows. So Trump is like, okay, and he's getting his pen all ready to sign. Then he stops and in a second. How much was that drone that they shot down? Well, it was about $30 million, sir. But it wasn't just one drone, it's two. And then the replacement cost, they're $35 million now. That's $70 million. We can't let them get away with it. You're going to go do $1 billion strike on Iran, right? We're worried about $70 million. Trump's looking at him, and he's got his pen almost on the paper, and then he stops and says, gosh, we are a big country. I think we can afford to just absorb that. I'm going to call it off for now. I don't want to kill a bunch of people. Tell everybody to shut it down. Sure. The Russians are watching. The Chinese are watching. They're going to warn Iran. We don't have time to dither. Nope. I'm not doing it. Pulls the desk drawer out, puts the pen back in the desk, closes the desk drawer demonstrably. Everybody is like, what just happened? Bolton is so pissed. He is so livid. Crap, he leaves the White House and writes a book about it, right? What's the moral of the story? What did Trump really do? He got all of his enemies worked up within the administration, within the Pentagon, everybody else that really wasn't wanting to do his bidding, that wanted to start a war, and he didn't want to start a war. And he got them all to commit and communicate and set up. He knew who all the players were that were in on this to get the next war going. And then he called it off. Supposedly through a war, nobody shows up, right? So what was the scuttlebutt going on since Trump announced he was going to do this talk to the nation? Well, there's all the issues. We're getting ready to go into Venezuela. And there's going to be bombing. There was people telling me this morning, and I think I mentioned it to you earlier, Scott, that were saying that Trump's going to announce we're going to war with Venezuela. And I says, really? He doesn't do, that's not how it works. Well, they're talking to Congress. Okay. Yeah, there's still certain checkpoints. That doesn't seem right, but okay, let's watch and see what's doing. Trump, he's pretty feisty. And so people are reporting. You got the Susie Wiles thing, and she's under fire. You got lowest ratings for the president so far since he took office, second term, supposedly out there. PBS is announcing he's only got 36% voter approval. Well, why do they say 36? Well, that's the Antichrist, 3 times 6, okay? They play all these little games, okay? And, and then it's 57% disapproval, 36% voter approval, 57% disapprove of everything he's doing. He's the most horrible president ever. And then instead of coming out and announcing, we're bombing Venezuela, something to do with elections, the national election emergency, which he's going to declare shortly, executive order, he just gives a report card. Here's where we're at. And I think that it wasn't as much about the talk to the nation, although that was, here's the facts, let's have a baseline, let's get real. Things are not as bad as the media is telling you it is, and you know it. And so here's some things to buoy up people's understanding. But there was something else going on, and other people around him were sending messages, communicating, this is the big one, we're ready to go, blah, blah, blah. And he got them right up to the altar and then paused, and a bunch of people tripped on their coattails and their shoestrings trying to stop because they were way out ahead of it. He's got some big announcements that he's going to do, but this was maybe reminding people, don't get ahead of me, even in his own camp, and don't presume you know exactly what I'm going to say, and go telling that I know what I'm going to say. Follow the lead, and all those people that went out ahead of him have a little bit of egg on their face because he, proclaimed to know and saw till he does it. Nobody knows exactly what's in his mind to do, and he's keeping his counsel, and he's kind of making a point and making it stick. Does that click for you? Does that make sense, Scott?
It does, because most people know, Juan, or believe that he's still surrounded. He's in a den of vipers, and I suspect a lot of things he's doing inside the administration. If he doesn't know who's working against him, and maybe he does by this time, but it would seem to me that he would be playing this out in ways that could smoke out some of these people, trip them up, or maybe neutralize them. Is my assessment accurate on that?
I think that's exactly what I'm trying to say, and I think that would be, look, you can have everybody report on what you just said. Within this audience, I think, much of them are true believers already. So they're trying to read between the lines. What just happened? It wasn't what most people anticipated, even within his own team. He's not letting even his friends push him ahead of what he's ready to do next. And it keeps our enemies under kind of a, they got to think every time, is this the big one? Is he going to do this or that? And what happened behind the scenes that you didn't know about? For example, when he was going over to the White House to do this press thing, talk to the nation, he had McCarthy, the old Speaker of the House that's out now, and Johnson's in. He had McCarthy in tow going over to Marine One. So what other conversations are being had just out of sight? And why would he be having those? We have the largest flotilla in South American history. Venezuela is surrounded, if you will. So what are they getting away with right now? Not very much. And does he have to go to war with Venezuela? A lot of people are saying that was his next move. Trump, the last thing he wants to do is go to war. Yeah. And he's made that excruciatingly clear over and over. But he'll use everything in the box to sequester, lock in, keep these people from mischief. And he's not afraid to, you're going to try to bring a boat out with drugs. They're going to kill a bunch of people. Well, we'll kill you right back. And by the way, the boat with the survivors that was hit a second time, they were enemy combatants. They were returning to their boat. And so within the letter of the law, they were not innocent civilians, whatever. So, and nobody gave the order to kill them all or something like that. There was, some ongoing concern. I'm not going to apologize for it. I'm not completely comfortable with what happened there. But in the fog of the moment and communications and all that, they were fair. They're out there trying to bring drugs. One of those boats might kill, 500 kids here in the country. The drugs getting out there to people. If it just kills one, are we going to let it through at this point? We're choking them off so they can't come here and bring their poison or get money to go do their poisonous acts against not just America but across the world. By the way, it was Chinese boats carrying meth being made in Venezuela to the shores of South Africa, and they trade the meth. It goes up to Africa from South Africa, up to Europe from South Africa. They trade the meth for abalone and other sea delicacies with Chinese traders to, make money. And that's coming out of Venezuela. So there's a lot going on here that I think by tomorrow or the weekend we may know a whole bunch more of things. It's a magic act. While you're watching this, something else is occurring just out of sight, and he needed everybody's attention for a moment while he was doing other stuff. That's my personal gut instinct. We'll find out if we even know what it is for the time being. He may very well have had in mind that he wanted Venezuela, Maduro, to think this was the big one. And, the bombing starts in 5 minutes and work to change locations. Remember, Maduro has a $50 million bail bounty on it. And, much of the pain in many categories going on in the American public is coming right out of Venezuela. That's why we have flotilla, largest in South American history, blockading Venezuela. So, yeah.
Well, that blockade is as effective as actually doing combat, in my opinion, because if they're blocking everything coming out of Venezuela, they're choking out their money supply, in my opinion, aren't they? Isn't that where they're getting any money from drugs and oil? If they can't sell oil.
They're supposed to be under sanctions, as Russia is also, and the oil isn't supposed to be going out. China says, we'll take the oil and you can't stop us. The one boat that they stopped initially, the skipper, and started to make a point on, that was a boat that was changing names, flying under multiple flags, trying to play a little cat and mouse, and then sell the oil into places that they could make a buck at cheap prices, and covertly. And so we made a big stink about that one. But others of them going to China, etc. Well, that's financing the Maduro staying in power, and he's there through election fraud. So Trump has made it his point that Maduro's out. We have a $50 million bounty from the Justice Department. He's been indicted on exporting terrorism and drug charges, drug trafficking, and so he had an opportunity to go into exile and. He could live out the rest of his life, work on a suntan, hang out on the beach chairs, but he'd be pretty much locked to a tropical island location for the rest of his life. And he didn't take it. So he wants to duke it out. That opportunity is now gone. He doesn't have the opportunity to opt out. We're going for him. And Trump, not letting it get out that he wasn't going after Maduro. Everybody's speculating. I don't speculate. He'd lie and say anything that would put, storms upon us. And he baited him. I think we'd find out something happened that we didn't know, or other people couldn't know what Trump's real intent was. And they probably took certain actions that helped reveal positions, connections, intentions, somehow.
It makes sense. There's a couple points in here I wanted to throw by you that are a little off this particular subject matter, but I want to throw them at you anyway. Somebody was asking, they want to know about the $900 billion to Israel. Somebody's a little perturbed about that. Do you have any comment on that?
Well, I don't have a specific knowledge on that precisely, but let's talk about Israel for a second. We'll start back at the bombing in Iran. Israel had done this stuff with the drones, and they'd taken a lot of stuff out, targets like that, but they did not have. People have speculated they did not have the technical capability to take out these sites where the Iranians were working on nuclear weapons grade material, refining like that. And so the U.S. had the capability to do that. Did Israel, I've heard all these stories. Okay, Netanyahu was blackmailing Trump. It's over Epstein and blah, blah, blah. And he had to do it or he was going to be exposed. Bullshit. When Trump went in there and bombed those sites in Iran, we actually gave him notice. Don't let anybody be in there. We're going to bomb it. I'm telling you, we're going to bomb it. You come up trying to do anything to take on our guys, we will take them out and stand back. And sure enough, we went in there with these massive bunker buster bombs that are able to penetrate down to the levels into those labs and destroy these facilities. Now, could they be put back together again? A lot of the equipment's very high precision, laser isotope separation systems, other things. So it was, you might look at it and say, well, they could move the chairs around and put stuff back in. All of the delicate stuff, it's just junk. Okay. And what did we do when we did that? You understand that about a dozen wars, huge conflicts around the planet, Iran's right at the center of it. Venezuela, they were running the Quds forces over on aircraft that were hijacked literally from an American, naturalized American, from Iran to Venezuela. And that's a bigger story than people are that's coming. When you get to that story, that's going to equally piss you off with a whole bunch of other ones. So these special forces, these Quds forces, have been being ferried to Venezuela. And then many of them were coming by land to the United States, into the country. Many of them are still here. And there's a lot of ways we know that. One specific one of the aircraft had a fuel issue in a heavy weather situation. They had to go next door and land in Argentina. They couldn't land in Venezuela. When they did, the Argentine military took all of the people off the plane, photographed, documented everything else. They're all Quds forces, okay? And then put them back on the plane, refueled the thing, and sent it over to Venezuela. Well, even in interviewing some of the guys at the time, they weren't headed for Venezuela. They were headed for the U.S. And that's been going on for quite a while. Cuba, Venezuela's been being run by Cuba. Cuba's running Venezuela. You couldn't get a driver's license. You couldn't get your social security check without a Cuban approving it. It's been that way for a very long time. Okay, 30 years plus. So with that in mind, who was tied into Venezuela besides the Iranians? Iranians were tied into Cuba. Iranians are tied into the Congo. Iranians are tied into Russia stuff. The Congo, where you have 10 million people dead. And Iran's in there helping with the Chinese to go in and get the medals and keep that war going, with troops on the ground inside of Congo. The Iranians tied into South Africa, which, by the way, had the nuclear materials for 6 bombs, the expertise for 6 bombs, a few decades ago, before we had, what's his name, the apartheid guy come in and take power. So with that in mind, say again? Yeah, Nelson Mandela. I'm sorry, my wife was reminding me. And so they have a lot of technology, a lot of weirdness going on there. And Iran and Ramaphosa have been working together, exporting terrorism across Africa. Iran is, going after us here in the U.S. with all sorts of mischief behind the scenes that you don't know precisely about because it's kept behind the curtains. The attacks on Israel with thousands and thousands and thousands of missiles, which they didn't fully understand how Israel was already defending itself with laser systems, besides the missile interceptors, which are much more expensive. So Iran's trying to, the stuff in Yemen, with Iran involved there, a couple million people dead. You have more people dead in Yemen by like double as you have dead in Ukraine in half the time. It's Iran's right there in the middle of it. So when Trump bombed the nuclear facilities in Iran, where would Iran send a bomb? What would they do to try and cause a fight? Who would they give it to or work with? Remember, they want to start jihad. They want to start this, end of the world that brings back the Messiah. If they bring the world to the brink of destruction through World War III, the belief is within their religion, if you will, these mullahs, that they bring the Messiah to the earth, not Jesus. Their Islamic Messiah, and he conquers all their enemies, and they, have their 1,000 years of peace. Okay, it's a variation on the, Christian religion, the Judaic religion, and within all of that, you had to stand. Trump stopped him and put him in check, and stopped what they would have done with terrorism or blackmail with nuclear devices. Not putting a missile, most likely, putting a ship, a truck, something else. And he didn't do it for Netanyahu, he did it for the whole world. Okay, it wasn't just for Israel. How would a nuke be usable to Iran here in the U.S.? Sum of all fears. Again, the other thing is that, yes, there's a lot of money going to Israel. It's has to be revisited, and Trump is doing that. Let me add one other thing. I can hear people, that's not a good enough answer. He's still send money over there. Okay, hold on. Relax for a second. Let's have a conversation. So, Trump goes to Saudi Arabia and secures an arms deal that, it's like $1 trillion. Okay, then he goes next door to Qatar and secures another arms deal. It's like $1.5 trillion. This is huge amounts of money. It's all going to be built out. Well, then they're going to come to the United States and invade America. Look, when you buy an airborne weapon system platform, those aircraft need spare parts. You better be on the right side of the U.S. government, or like Iran found out, those F-14s that you got, they are paperweights, and very quickly.
I never thought about that. They still are running those things, and we got rid of them, 15 years ago, at least?
Well, that's all they have, but they're doing it with spare parts, and the spare parts don't work right. Blah, blah, blah. So, that's what Iran-Contra was about, was the Israelis were selling parts to Iran to service and maintain their 14s. And then in the course of doing that, the money from these spare parts, Israel was getting backfilled with replacement parts. These were the old used ones, tires, brakes, silly things. And so that Iran could still fly these aircraft. They still were struggling to keep anything moving. They weren't going to fight a war. They were going to do a demonstration flight. That was about all they could really pull off. And it was $40 million for the spares, which even then, you're not keeping much going very far on $40 million. And so the reason that I mention all of that is now Qatar and Saudi Arabia, they are tied to us with helping to service, maintain, those things need updates. They got every month, they got 100 new changes, updates, repairs, etc. They're tied at the hip to the U.S. Military and defense system and politics to align themselves with how we think for the next 30 years. And the most important thing that nobody even understands, trillions and trillions of dollars going on. Okay, hold on. Here's the other thing. Saudi Arabia and Qatar were going all in on oil trades involving BRICS currency and not the dollar. And they backed off. Okay. They haven't gone in on the BRICS stuff. And so what's happened is that the BRICS now is very weak. Even the stuff going on in Brazil. Remember, BRICS is Brazil, Russia, India, and China trying to create their own currency to compete with the dollar. And there's two things Trump's doing during this administration. The most important things Trump intends to do. Number one, he's going to return an honest vote, honest weights and measures. Your vote is not going to be diluted by false votes, computer-generated dots and tittles, fake ballots printed in China, people that aren't U.S. citizens voting for you 2 and 3 and 20 times. Okay, he's going to return honest elections to America. That's the most important thing. It's the hinge thing his entire life. That's why what's coming. And I told people the date's not right for it, so it didn't make sense to me. The 17th, it's a little bit later. He'll declare a national election emergency. And then probably he could do it at the same time. I think it's a couple of days later. He'll issue his executive order regarding elections, going to a hand count, paper ballot, 1 day vote, counted where cast, no ballots transported in the trunks of police cars or grandma's knitting basket, no central vote counting centers like Nevada and other places asked, no mail-in ballot, 1 day vote. That's coming. And timing is everything on announcing that and then doing the first of all, in order to go clean the voter rolls up, you cannot do it legislatively. You cannot get it uniform across the country. There's companies that spent millions of dollars. I know a couple of the guys that did it to come up with systems to clean up the voter rolls, and they can tell you that they won't get 100%. Trump's going to force the states to set that aside, the counties, and then everybody that's going to vote has to re-register. Clean voter rolls. You'll have months and months to do it. You can even vote, register vote on vote day. And then you won't have these professional poll workers who run the polls and they train and they do it all spring and summer and fall. Now it's 1 day vote. You'll have volunteers who'll go out, they'll train a couple weeks before the election, make sure they've got it right. Other volunteers help set things up a day or two before, and then a 1 day vote. And it's going to be epic. And the cheat is not going to happen. You're going to actually get the people you voted for into office. That's what 2026 is all about. Trump's about to do that. The second thing, and there's a reason why I want to mention that's number one. Number two is he wants an honest vote and he wants honest money. And in order to get to honest money, he's going to move away from the Federal Reserve to Treasury. He's got a new Federal Reserve director that's coming shortly. He's going to announce that shortly. Powell's out. Powell wants to wait till May. It's not happening. And then we'll work with them while they bring down interest rates. But we're also going to start paying at some point our debts, including the Social Security, the Medicare, Medicaid, everything else with Treasury issued certificates, just like Kennedy had. Federal Reserve was around, but Kennedy started printing silver certificates. It was a receipt for real silver on deposit inside the U.S. Treasury system, not the Federal Reserve System.
Juan, will that be the same thing this time around? I've seen some photos. A guy, one of my contacts this is a couple of years ago now, like 3 years ago. He was talking to some NSA generals, primarily because of a very large proposal, a studio proposal, multi-billion-dollar proposal on bringing, big studio operation, all faith-based films for like Rudy, Blindside, all those things that raise your vibration. And so he was introduced to one of these guys at a dinner party in Vegas, and they had a conversation, explained what the whole business model was about. And this general came back the next day and sat down and said, give me all the details on this. And when he was all done, showed him the entire 200-page compendium, said, this is what we're going to need on the backside to start putting out the material in the world that is, obviously good for humanity. But through the course of that time, there's 2 or 3 of these guys he had been in contact with, still is, I believe. But he was sending me some things, and he sent me, I don't know if these are renderings or real examples, but this was U.S. currency, the new U.S. notes. And I have them somewhere here. I may probably send them to you. But one of them showed John Kennedy on, Roosevelt's wife. What was her name? FDR's wife. Eleanor Roosevelt was on one of them. Tesla was on one of them. And I said, why Roosevelt? And they said she was quite a humanitarian. I didn't know much about her, but so those were they look incredibly authentic, obviously, and nice designs. But he said this is the new currency that's already on the sidelines for the new U.S. note that's backed by, obviously, my guess is precious metals. Is there any truth to that based on what I saw, or how does this look with this system, this new is it a new currency, or are they going to recycle the same dollars and tie them to something? How does that look?
Well, there's going to be some kind of a move over at Treasury, but I don't think we know exactly what it looks like. It's kind of like today. Is Trump letting everything out of the bag yet? No. And even some of the people involved don't fully know all the details. The short version is he wants to go to gold-backed everything. And so unlike a reserve note, which is just a fiat note, it has nothing backing it. You can't go to the Federal Reserve, the bankers, and get anything of value for it, silver or gold. The Treasury certificate is not a note. It's not a promissory note. It is an actual receipt. So when you have a silver certificate, go look online, look at a silver certificate. It has a number, and it ties literally to a pallet of cash of silver. Okay, and they can only print so many of them for the silver that's sitting there, silver or gold. Oh, there's a spider trying to get in my truck. There we go. All right, he's toast. He was a nice spider, I'm sure, but he's not a spider one on me. So they will tie it to specific gold and silver in stock on pallets that makes what you have when you have a Treasury certificate, a receipt that you can exchange for real gold or silver. It would be the theory, as opposed to just a note, promissory note tied to the political promises of a politician or a banker, who knows who. So that's quite a bit different. The transition is not simple. And by the way, just as an aside, part of the problem with the whole Federal Reserve system, the international Federal Reserve system, is it's tied to these banks in London, and the city within the city. And that's in large measure who Trump is fighting. Remember, where did the dossier come from that would accuse Trump of the Russia stuff? Came from the city of London, city within the city. Okay, from Bankersville. That's how it was being coordinated, disseminated, everything else. These are people that have it all in for Trump, that want the war with Russia, trying to set this whole thing up, this globalista crowd. So is Trump going to actually promote and make them better? No, what he's going to do is he's going to force them to bring interest rates, same thing he did in the first term, bring interest rates down to next to nothing. And then start switching, because we switched to paying with Treasury certificates, not Federal Reserve notes. Now, people are welcome to trade it into Federal Reserve notes, but what will happen is a natural transition out of one to the other. Many people won't fully realize it, but over time, by the way, when Kennedy issued the silver certificates, within just a couple of days, I think the fourth day of the Johnson administration, 3 days after the death date, the murder date, he pulled back the silver certificates, ordered them taken out of circulation. And all of the existing ones, they had to turn them in. People had to turn them in within so many days, or they would no longer have purchasing power. You couldn't transact them through the banking system. They were no longer legal tender. And they pulled them out of circulation, replaced them with Federal Reserve notes. Trump is in many ways picking up where President Kennedy left off to try and recapture the country from this crowd that's hijacked the ship of state of America. And the currency is the other one. And so in the Bible and the scriptures, it's called honest weights and measures. And God abhors dishonest weights and measures, something where somebody's drilled a little hole in it, they've lightened it up just slightly, they've overweighted it somehow to their advantage for buying or selling grain and other things. So it's a way of theft that's hidden. You can't quite see it. Fiat money with interest rates for what? They print paper for managing our money supply. It's not even our money supply. It's unconstitutional. The only thing that's constitutional for money, according to the United States Constitution, is gold and silver coin minted by the Treasury with exacting specifications. And the various mints around the country. If anybody frauded on the weights and measures within the coinage, you could probably just about kill somebody and not get as severely punished. So it's a way of stealing that's hidden. But fiat money, Federal Reserve money, is a way of stealing with false interest rates and payments for, managing it. It's the biggest theft on the planet. We're going to go back to honest weights and measures. So two things. Honest vote. Your vote isn't diluted by fraudulent people who aren't U.S. citizens. And honest vote. And did we get that today? We got a report card. And so a lot of times, if you think about it, before you move on, you kind of have to do an assessment. Here's where we're at. Here's what we've got. We're doing great here. We're not doing so great there. Here's what's left to do. And then you can power on to the next thing. I think he just gave you a foundation where we're at. All the pundits can complain. He hasn't got this. He's lying. It's not true. He gave you a baseline. It's not as bad as some people are saying. And now we can move forward. You and I think that's where we're at. He's gonna and in the meantime, he snookered a bunch of people to react, talk, step forward in ways that just plain aren't what's going on, and just let them trip over their coattails and their shoelaces and everything else. Does that click for you? I know you're watching the comments. Yeah. Are the people there in the comments? Is that clicking for people, or does it sound like I'm not on it?
No. They people continue to ask questions about when it comes to the financial side of things. You got this cast of characters. Obviously, I just I grabbed a copy of Silver Notes, what they look like. I actually dropped it in your text too. People are asking, and again, and this is kind of an ancillary question, because there are things going on. My belief is, you get this cast of characters that are still out there. They're in play. You have Jamie Dimon, J.P. Morgan. You've got other people that obviously we don't believe are good guys working for the other side, part of the cabal powers, carrying out, their own mission with the rest of the World Economic Forum crowd. But and some of these people are still in play. Some are close to Trump. He's got relationships with them. I think that the general question is, are these people captured and working, let's just say working off their due, following along with whatever deal they may have cut to make this transition in the world seem natural? And you and I both know that it can't be cataclysmic change, because there'd be too much chaos in the world and social service breaking down, people going crazy. If it looks like a natural political transformation of the planet at a speed that people can absorb it, number one, and say, wow, the world's really changed in the last 3, 4, 5 years. We're heading in a different direction. How great is this? Versus something that is explosive and creates fear and panic. That makes sense to me, because I think that's what our back channel intelligence operators gave us years ago. But I do have to ask if you have any information like that. There's somebody like Jamie Dimon now working his part of the plan that he's forced to work to cut a deal for himself, and some of these other guys that surround Trump.
Well, let me kind of comment. I want to answer that directly. But before I get there, let me just give you a little something that happened. I was dealing with a person who had retired from inside the intelligence community, who I knew for quite some time. And she, at the time, this is 4 years ago, and they retired. They're in a retirement community with their spouse and like that. So we were talking because we were supposed to meet in the Caribbean on something, and this person was going to be on a vacation there, and I wanted to get a chance to meet the spouse. And I had some technical questions on some money being moved in and out of a certain country, and this person was the right person to talk to. So she didn't end up being there, and I only had one day to meet with her, and so I didn't have a lot of room to, juggle or whatever. I get to the spouse. The spouse says, I got to tell you, I don't know what's going on, and she can't tell me what's going on. So I go meet with her at their home in a particular state a month or so later. And they tell me, Jamie Dimon, they had an issue on this particular thing, and the people there now didn't know how to handle this particular transaction and get it done. So they literally sent his personal jet to this island location, picked her up, brought her back to New York. Took her like 2-3 hours to do it because there was a lot of very secure situation, very sensitive situation, a lot of money involved. And then she went back and, continued her vacation. It was the exact day that I couldn't. It was the only day that we could meet there. That was within an operation, not just the intelligence community in a generic sense, but national security issues.
Waiting. We lost him. We'll hang out for a minute because I suspect he will call back unless he's in an area where we can't find him. I'm looking in here. A couple things I see folks dropping in here. I'll just answer till he comes back. Somebody, when we were talking about silver certificates, and I pulled those up, had Lisa put them up on the screen. Those were ones that I pulled off of. I don't know if those are from back in the Lincoln era, or if they were back in the JFK era. The president who was on there, I thought it said McKinley, but it doesn't look like McKinley. Maybe it is. It's kind of, that'd be the Treasury Secretary. Here's one. Bring him back. Get your coffee?
I was moving and it changed cell sites, dropped it. So let me just this quick story. So you have to think about what was going on here. Was he doing this as an intelligence community person? No. Was he doing something that factions of the intelligence community were involved with? I wouldn't call it where he was directing something, but he was certainly within his role, filling a role that was on behalf of something that, our government wanted done, and was doing it through a private, banking operation, chosen operation to complete this situation, and do it in such a way that it met international law, known, trusted, people and all that. But at that level, in that community, you almost can't function unless you have certain connections, relationships, agreements. Most of the people at that level are in some kind of an arrangement with senior executive service. And so all of that to say, do I put Jamie Dimon, is he James Bond? No, he is not. Is he directly employed by the U.S. government? Well, SES is continuity government, and there's probably something there. I don't know that specifically, but it's a pretty good guess that there's some kind of agreement relationship there from that position. Most all the players at that level have to, because you're at a key choke point, and on a moment's notice, say tracking terrorists with money, transferring wherever, you've got to have not just the lead person like that, but a number of staff at key positions you can call in on a moment's notice to help in, say, an anti-terrorism tracking something or other operation. And some of it's not as clear cut as you might think. I mean, my person is, on one vacation that they haven't taken for years. And that's the one time they're not able to go to a secure location readily, easily, and help. They're supposed to be retired, but they're still getting called in. Why? Because serious shit is taking place right under your noses. You have no idea. They're following you for, a few dots and tittles on the computer screen to make sure you're not funding terrorism. The reality is, it's just like Scott Bennett was found and was talking about, and they didn't like that. The huge amounts of money that were being laundered through big banks, UBS being one of the worst, funding terrorism. And what was it tied to? It was tied to CIA. It was tied to other intelligence operations, military, investigative, including FBI, and other countries, MI5 and 6 and other things. And he tracked all that. He wrote books about it. And it's very true. It's happening right in plain sight. So now let me come back. Jamie Dimon is as inside gets. He knows as much as anybody out there on the planet knows. Does he know what Trump's going to do next? No. Does he have some thoughts and ideas what Trump might do next based on their next? Yeah. But does he know? No, he believes he knows. He doesn't know. No. Okay.
Is Juan, to interject a real quick question, are guys like him, do they understand? I mean, is there writing on the wall for them, and they're just seeing what moves are being made that ultimately are going to change their world too? Or they're just in a chess game. They don't know that their demise is at hand.
Well, let me help everybody a little bit here. I think some of these players, you think they got to be taken out just because they've done stuff. Look, if you went to Patrick Byrne or even myself at certain times in the things that we've done, if you just looked at the level, what was visible or learnable or knowable at one precise moment in time, you'd say, total bad guy. This is bullshit. When you're in that world, you're fully into precisely what you have to do, the part you're playing, etc. There's layers that may be hidden. I mean, that's war. War is about illusions and deceptions in order to gain an advantage. Look like you're one place and weak, be another place and be strong. And so with somebody like Dimon, yes, he has to be a player. You didn't get there without being a player, okay? And he's in the club. But not everybody that's in the club is bad, or even if they're kind of whatever. It's the game at that level. It is the game at that level. It's just the way it is. So, should he go be strung up because of stuff he's been involved in? Somebody had to do it, and the country's role and all that. And he has been kind of honest about a number of things. For example, Diamond came out a couple 3 months ago. I had put something into a question that was going into a shareholders meeting, and so he was responding to that inquiry, and he said, the bond market is a real crisis, and I don't know if it's going to be 6 months or 6 years, but we're about to face a financial reckoning because of the bond situation. And, that was, I think, 3 months ago or something. He was making a true statement because he knows what I know. The bond market has been used to money launder and do all sorts of fraud to support predominantly around the world a certain political persuasion and certain players. And it's not just Democrat, it's rhinos too. And this kind of racket involving law firms and all sorts of things. And the money's not truly there. It's part of the reason why you got to bring interest rates down. The other side of the coin is you bring the interest rates down, you expose a lot of these fraudulent bonds. It's going to be a nightmare. With that in mind, he spoke a true statement. Anybody investing needs to look at their bond exposure and run, not walk, to the nearest exit. And most people that have it's grandmas, it's people who need that money every month because it's insurance money to keep them alive or something. And that bond exposure, the crisis in the bond market, is going to be epic. Well, Jamie spoke truth, and he warned anybody that wanted to listen. And you need to look at other things as options. I personally prefer, for the moment, not permanently, for the moment. Gold and silver are horrible investments. They neither spin nor toil. Silver's better than gold because it has industrial applications, so you consume it and you constantly have to backfill because there's less and less because it's getting used up industrially. And so there's demand for it beyond just, as fodder for trading. There's a little bit of that with gold, but nowhere near the same type of demand. And there's other things that go with silver. It's kind of the common man's gold, if you will. That was the way it was referred to 150 years ago. And as long as you have known weights and measures, government issued, then you have predictability, stability. Even look at the cryptos. I warned people a number of times. You have to understand these cryptos, they're just based on air. Which is safer, fiat paper, which the Federal Reserve puts out, or fiat dots and tittles on a computer screen, electrons?
I'd say fiat paper right now.
Yeah, because at least it costs money to print the paper. You have to have paper available to print the replacement stuff. You're limited by the amount of paper available to you at some level. Yeah, it's so. Does that mean it's the end of Bitcoin? Is it the end of the cryptos? No, they're going to pursue that, but you're going to tie even Bitcoin on threads to metals, gold with Bitcoin primarily, and silver over into the Ethereum side, and some Bitcoin like that. So they'll be trading, and it's a blockchain, so it keeps a record. That's the real advantage of it. But the value isn't in the dots and the tittles; it's in what it represents as a receipt or a record of ownership, etc. So, is Bitcoin going to go to new highs at some point in time? Yeah, I think so. But it's going to get tied to some other things that are going to help to stabilize it.
into what amounts to a stablecoin type of environment.
Well, since you brought up crypto, let me ask you a question, because this has been this kind of, I don't know, loosely flying narrative for the last 5 years on crypto that, I know people that own, a good amount of, a few guys that own a couple, a fair amount of XRP, and they all think that they're going to be billionaires, like literally overnight. I've seen different things on XRP. I've seen the Citicorp, CEO of Citicorp talking about that. You've got, what's his name? Garlinghouse meeting with Trump right after the election twice. You hear everything about the Ripple platform eliminating Swift. All these things that are coming out that sound really enticing on, these type of cryptos. I've never owned any until, I don't know, probably last fall. Somebody encouraged me to buy a little bit, so I did. But is there any truth to this when it comes to cryptocurrency, that something like XRP is going to be like the next monster, like Bitcoin was, and that people are just going to make untold wealth because they invested in this stuff early when it was dirt cheap?
Well, I've got friends that are pushing hard on the XRP and like that, and I've spoken with them very directly and with audiences. XRP has a ability to do minute transactions, very costly, very effectively, securely, etc. So it is in a lead position. There's no question about that. And if you look at the potential volume of transactions across the planet, and it being adopted, yes, you could make fantastical sums of money with it. This moment in the crypto community is similar to the moment some of the older of us remember with the early credit cards in the 70s and 80s. Okay. Early 70s and mid 80s and all that. So you would look on your credit card and you would see that it had different things: Discover, Accel, Excel, different trading things that were where their money was being traded within, say, the SWIFT system. If you wanted to go to a bank or to a store or to a gas station, you would have to look, and it would say, have something on the door that they accept, cards based on Discover, Accel, Excel. And there was about half a dozen primary ones. As it got on, there was like a dozen, and it got hard to tell which one was a bank, and you got, stuff coming online all the time. So at the end of the day, they all got merged. You don't see that on your card anymore. Why? Because they all got bought up and merged into one thing. Different groups had different reasons they worked well. They all got merged into one within the cryptos and the crypto trading. Right now, even though Bitcoin is the big dog, are you going to Starbucks and buying your coffee with the crypto? Are you able to go buy a new car with the crypto? Yeah, there's a few places here and there. Is it easy? Not really. And if you're trying to buy or sell large volumes, you got an in and an out fee. You got brokers that are covering that. You got to be able to stand on one ear and hold the tinfoil with your rabbit ear just right to be able to get the transaction done, have somebody hold your hand through it. It's a pain in the ass. As that moves along and gets more refined, which is what they believe will happen with the XRP and with some of the bigger trading stuff, the big stock market trading groups like that it will become more normalized and move from a very out of the edge thing to common. I remember, I'm far enough back to remember into the 60s when credit cards were not, they weren't there. You had cash and you had a check. And if you went to the store, you went to the grocery store, you went to a big, box store or whatever, you paid with a check, they paid with cash. And if it was a big check, they'd call and verify it. Nobody had a credit card. Then the early gas cards came on, the early Visa, MasterCharge, and other stuff came on, and it began to normalize. But for really into the 70s, other than gas cards, credit cards were very, a very tiny percentage of the population had them. Over time, they got normalized. The anticipation is that's what's going to happen with the cryptos, but with your wallet. But you do not have adaption by grandma, grandpa. It's rare, it's there, but it's not common. And until you get that, everybody thinks it's here already. You're pushing on a string. How far is that common adaptation? Well, there's still vulnerability. I can tell you stories right now with lost gazillions within the crypto stuff, stolen, lost codes, all sorts of things. It's still, the adaption level is going to stay low for a while until it becomes tied in the right way to make it easier for transactions and safer from transactions. And I know I could go to a crypto conference right now. Everybody there has all the reasons why I'm on. But for example, let me come back. XRP, it presumes that they've got the corner on the way that these transactions can occur. And they're the best and they're the smoothest. Let me use this example. I've used it with other audiences. Let me use this example. I was around. I was there in the room with the discussions with my friend, a very wealthy businessman. Well, there was the argument over beta versus VHS video recording systems. Sony had beta. It was more compact. It was higher resolution. It was significantly more expensive, but that was the future. And the VHS systems, Sony wouldn't license anybody else to make beta. And where they did license it, it was a very expensive license. They didn't want to compete with other manufacturers. They want to do their own manufacturing for the most part. So the licenses were very expensive for other companies to make beta. They also wanted to make all the money on the videotapes, not just the videotape that was raw, unrecorded on, but also on the videotape that was, had movies and things like that they saw the future was going to be there. Now, in the early mid-'70s, as home recording systems came online, I was there 3/4 inch. The tapes are $25 a piece. It's just, and then RCA came out with the 1/2 inch, and it was VHS, and it was cheaper. The tapes, came down to like $15, $16. The recorders were still like $2,000. These recorders, in today's dollars, that'd be like a $5,000-$6,000 device or more. Okay, compared to people's income. At the time that these recorders were $29.99, and then they brought them down to $19.99. $1,999. I could go to the Ford dealership and buy a 3-year-old T-Bird for the same money. And it was a good car. It didn't have huge miles on it, because I actually did.
What year was that, Juan? Roughly?
I got a I got a 67 or 8 T-Bird with the suicide doors, had a 429 in it. It was a color I'm not real happy with and never ever have really liked exactly, but I've had a few of them and they grow on you. And it was a green. I wanted a turquoise, but it happened. This was for sale and the price was right.
That's that green one, turquoise.
Green metallic. Oh my gosh! But
I had to tell you the story. My dad, the general, the cars that he bought always had the craziest colors. I remember a Comet that he bought was probably in the 60s, and it was a deep purple, like a grape purple. He had it must have been a Ford Fairlane. It was peach colored. And then there's a couple others. I'm just thinking, in fact, he bought a Thunderbird in 77, and it was a cream colored Thunderbird. And that's when they had the short ass end and a real long, front end, long hood and all that. Is a two-door, I believe. Yeah, it's 2-door. He had that Thunderbird. I think he put 10,000 miles on, put it in a garage, had it sitting on wooden blocks so the tires wouldn't touch the gravel ground. And he kept it covered up with plastic for like 20 freaking years. I wasn't even allowed to take it to the prom when I was a senior in high school. He wouldn't let dust fall on it. He turned around and sold the thing for like $1,400. I don't know, probably. I think in early 90s.
What year was it?
It was a 77. Mint, gosh. I'm telling you, brother, this sucker looked like it still was on the showroom. That's how my dad kept care of everything. But people give me shit because I'm so anal about my vehicles. It's like they're always clean for the most part, inside and out, spick and span, because I had to do this every Sunday. All the cars had to be washed up, had the have the inside swept out. If there's one tiny piece of gravel in there, do it again. But there's only one. I picked it up. Do it again. Do it right the first time. Never. I went through that shit for 18 years. Went to boot camp. But anyways,
so no matter, you're so messed up.
Exactly. Now I can explain myself to my audience. Like, okay, now I get it. They see me like rubbing a little piece of fuzz off my camera here, sitting there because I can see it's blocking the view a little bit. Like, geez, Scott, give it a break. Anyways, that 77 Thunderbird was a beautiful machine that I never got to drive in my life.
Oh my God! Well, actually, I'm thinking about one of my favorite cars that I would buy. I would buy it today if I saw it. Was when I said I never want to own green. I just hated the green, but I get a good buy, whatever. I thought it was okay. It's better, but I wasn't going to keep it. Was a 74 Montego. Is it 73 or 74? I have to think about it for a second, but I think it was 74. Might have been 73. So it was kind of what I called a seafoam green, and it had a dark green vinyl top. And then it was another thing. I hated four doors, but that particular car, the back door was kind of hidden in the way that the body lines were. And so it was a four-door Montego. And then it had absolutely the most beautiful cloth interior in it that was better than you'd find even in some of the upline cars like the Lincolns like that. It looked like a caddy that I had that had this kind of a this squirrely little, I forget what they call it, kind of a print to it, but it was very high quality, with a bench seat that had the fold down in the middle. Such a fun, comfortable car, and had a 351 in it. I drove the tires off that car, and the color grew on me. And if I saw one today, I'd buy it in a heartbeat. I mean, if it was in good shape, I don't want to buy a shot. It'd be hard to find because it's not a super hyper collector. I just have lots of fun memories with it. And then the other thing, before we go back to the story in the VHS and beta, you were talking about the colors on these cars. I had a orange, burnt orange 57 Volkswagen with a Porsche engine in it that was 13 seconds in the quarter mile, bias tires in the back, radials on the front. The thing would do 125 miles an hour. It was a absolute rocket ship that this guy had built, and I got a fairly good deal. And it had a roll bar in it. You couldn't even see the roll bar because it had a split window, so the center of the roll bar in the back came down on the split window, and you had to look at it twice to see it was in there. And it had the glass covers for the headlights were these to keep rocks out for like a Baja race or something like that. I just thought it was the coolest looking car in the world. I remember getting that. It had Porsche. Actually, weren't Porsche. They were a racing seat that was being used by Porsche in some of the cars for the guys who were doing it. So it was a high-end molded racing seat, a pair of racing seats in it that didn't fold forward. It was so no back seat. The thing. It was an epic car. It was burnt orange. And at the same time, I had two Ford Sunliners, a 55 and a 56. Well, at the time, Ford had this orange that was kind of a little bit almost of a pumpkin orange, but it wasn't super harsh bright. It was kind of a soft tone. And then the other one, the 55, was this closer to a pinkish, but in those days, real intensity in the color was very expensive. To get a real red was very hard. They charged extra for it, and same thing with copper, because the pigments were so expensive. So I remember I was so proud of my 56. It was such a cool car. It was, epic and convertible and everything like that. And I had it at a location, and I was coming out somewhere, a store or something like that. And I saw a gal that I knew from school. And as I'm, walking back to my car, she says to her friend that's with her, "Oh, that is titty pink."
What? Titty pink?
I was so my face was so red, you have no idea. And I was afraid to take it out of the garage after that. Okay, it wasn't pink; it was salmon orange kind of a color. Okay, and so then I actually had my other car out. I actually didn't want to drive the car for a little bit because I was embarrassed. And I'm driving the other one that's got this kind of a pinkish tone to it. That's this soft color. And white, and doggone if I'm not somewhere, and she pulls in the gas station where I'm at, and she's got some friends with them, and says, "That's a different color of titty pink." I'm like, what can I do? I didn't want to sell the cars, but I didn't. I actually sold one, but not the other one later. But those colors, to this day, I go to a car show and I see those Fords in those colors, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. That's why I buy blue, green. I don't want to say, well, it's alien green. Titty green or something, but anyway.
I found out.
Rihanna might say something that then she's not happy. We can witch her somebody to show up. But anyway, so going back to the VHS, and I've got to flip to here momentarily. So let me just finish this one thought. Beta was a higher quality system that Sony had. The recorders were smaller, the tapes were smaller, they were more expensive, but they purported to be the future of video recording. And they didn't want to give it away to anybody. They were so proud of it, they didn't want anybody else manufacturing this Sony product with Sony TVs, highest everything. But shoot, most people just want to spend that money. And VHS was lower resolution. The tapes were a little bit bigger, but the tapes were half the price of Sony's tapes. And people were recording their own shows. At that time, back in the mid-'70s, you didn't have tapes that you could buy legally that had shows on. You could get pirated ones where they went into the theater and filmed it with a camera, and it was a lower quality tape of The Godfather, or porn tapes or whatever, but you weren't getting, high quality tapes. There wasn't, the tape rental places yet. And Sony lost the video recorder war. And here's why. At that time, the TVs were only receiving a broadcast signal that was about 250 lines per inch. Sony was recording on their recorders at, just under 500. Very high quality, but you weren't even getting that from the broadcasters, and that wasn't going to change. That didn't change till we went to digital 15, 20 years ago on the broadcast. That was still analog days all the way up until 15, 20 years ago. Sony was selling a higher quality recorder, but the TVs didn't have high definition yet. We're going to be having it in a few years. They're selling you a product 5 years ahead of its time. But when it gets here, you'll still have your people. The prices on recorders kept dropping and dropping. My buddy said, I'm going to bring the price of video recorders under $500. That's when they were $3,000. You watch. And he put the focus on VHS because Sony wouldn't license other manufacturers. He helped to get dozens. The technology for VHS was developed by JVC. And then they sold it to RCA, licensed RCA to do it. JVC made so much money on tiny profits but everybody building them. And so Sony wasn't competing with JVC. Sony wasn't competing with RCA. Sony wasn't competing with Magnavox. See if anybody remembers that name anymore. Okay. All of the manufacturers were making VHS because it required less expensive components inside also, because it didn't have to have a high resolution. Nobody was getting it. You couldn't tell the difference on your recorder or TV anyway for the most part. Sony was overselling and they were way ahead on their time. People didn't have matching components. The broadcast system wasn't there. They were selling the future, but the future wasn't here, and I couldn't afford to pay for it. Nobody could afford to pay for it. They weren't selling as much. So then I come back to what happened. By the time that the TVs reached a level that was what Sony was capable of actually working with the beta system, we went to discs.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, we went to other systems, and then simultaneously we were doing all sorts of cartridges and other things that people want to do. The beta system, what they did is they got it mandated in Europe and tied to a lot of their systems to where, you could really only sell the beta systems. They get paid off a bunch of politicians is what really happened. And now they were competitive with VHS because of all the ways that they, did their trade stuff into Europe, paid off literally a bunch of politicians. To be able to buy into the market and force other people to have to overpay. VHS became the winner hands down 1,000 times over. It's what all the tapes were. The rental shops, they weren't renting beta tapes. You'd have 5 different movies on beta tapes you could rent, and you'd have 500 on VHS. And so Sony lost the recorder wars right then and there. Now I come to cryptos. They say that the only way that you're going to be able to do all the transactions is with XRP. So they've got this lock on it. And I've told everybody a million times, don't believe anybody has a lock quite yet. They're ahead of where the market is right now. You haven't even got full adaptability in the market. It's too complex. And XRP is something that goes hidden in the background that somebody will, decide to buy up, and there's a bunch of people holding and all that. Is it actually going to be the only way you can do it? Well, you're forgetting that we're in a epic era where computing processes and capabilities are morphing and are not settled. And now Trump's coming in, and with the tariffs, we're going to come in and come up with whole different ways that anybody has really quite thought of in the way we're doing some of this computing and new chips. Is XRP going to be able to maintain that hold on their ability to process, or is there other systems, programs that can be brought in that might be as good or better and even cheaper yet, and not already oversold and hyped at too high of a number? We don't know. We do not know, but we're not quite there yet. So there's always the possibility. Who would have dreamed you were going to have discs that could have 5 movies on them, not just one? That were flat, that, by the time you're done, you're getting like garage sales for $10 and they work just fine because somebody wants a newer, shinier one that, fits a whole different thing or whatever. I'm hesitant to go too deep. Is XRP worth having? Yeah, I'd have some XRP. The price is way down. It got hyped up and went to the moon along with the rest of the cryptos. A lot of the key players in the background did sell out. Oh, it's going to be on the stock market. A lot of smart guys got out while it was up high. And are they out forever? I don't think so. I think a lot of them will be back, but they understood that there's a cycle here going on. People are going to tangible right now because there's a lot of mystery. This year ahead, and I've got to leave this on the show, this year ahead, it has so many bends and twists in it. People have not even, Trump gave you a baseline for a reason. Hold on, take a deep breath, we're in pretty good shape here. We're on the right path. And now we got some critical stuff we got to get out of the way. Here's what happens within presidential politics. When they come into office, they want to get through that, honeymoon stage. They want to kind of get some things done, look good and all that. But if there's pain that you're going to do, not just for yourself, but for the party and for your legacy, you get that pain dealt with early on. We're still early on. 2026 is going to have a lot of wash through that we've got to clean out. Infection, rot, moldy brain, all sorts of things. And getting that out of our political body, our corporate body, our national body, is not going to be comfortable. Whether you're talking the way we run elections, the way that our money is. And part of it is throwing the stones at the people who got us here, which is with these elections coming up in 2026 and putting it on the backs of the Democrats and like that, is where Trump's at. And he can be a very vengeful person. And, he's a New Yorker. That's the way he thinks. Get over it. He wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be here if you didn't have that attitude. Take no prisoners. It's a war. He's going to get a lot of that washed through all during this year and coming up in 2026. Why is that? So we have enough time to fully recover with the right people in office coming into 2027, so that 2028, by the time we get into that window, we're in a John Kennedy-esque era. We're seeing the future again. We're seeing space. We're seeing new horizons. We're seeing new technology. We're seeing things that are washed and clean and shiny and bright, with future and a hope for the country. He has to get this pain out of the way. We might have thought we had a tough year so far this year. I think on many levels, the real pain and toughest part is the next 7-8 months. And I think there's still an announcement coming here at the 21st, 22nd. That's why I said, today, 12/17, I get that. It's not working for me. This isn't it. And it's definitely not the election announcement like that. Why the 21st, 22nd? That's the winter solstice. It's also dark to light. And what he wants is all this next, many months, is to bring to light all the corruption, all the cheating, all the fraud, all of the illegality, all the players. And the first ones marched off to Gitmo. So that's the moment we're in, Scott.
Since you brought that up, I think one of the key components of all of this is freeing us from this dragnet they cast over the whole country, is the election stuff. Obviously, the main topic of conversation with the elections and criminal activity, putting people like Tina Peters behind bars, that certainly has to be rectified. Obviously, I guess we probably need an update on where we are with her. You and I talked about that earlier today, where we are with the Tina Peters situation. What is the likelihood that she's safe and she's going to be okay and she's going to get out?
Well, we complained about her situation so many times. She was in a lot of pain like that. They give them a concrete bed, and then they give you a 2-inch mattress, 2-inch thick mattress that's beat down from all these years, and complain. She's 70 years old. You get older, your skin is thinner. You get cold easier like that. She's literally freezing to death, coughing up her lung. She has been falling, cascading away, having some health issues like that. When we complained and made a huge stink, finally, as they were really getting a lot of scrutiny on them here, especially with the second time they threw in the hole into solitary at this one facility at La Vista, with all of the stuff, and now we have federal investigations of how the prisons run there, Trump announced that last week. They went in the closet, dug down deep, and finally found a 4-inch thick mattress and gave Tina the 4-inch thick instead of the 2-inch thick. She actually has a microwave in her room, which is like, you gotta be like John Gotti, to be able to get a microwave in your room. She has that so she can warm something up, have a warm cup of tea or something like that. For her protection, she's still in the hole in solitary for her protection. Now they've assigned 4 prison dogs, guards. They're like the Doberman, the German Shepherd, the Pit Bull, and they've got these 4 guards assigned to her. She walks anywhere, she's on all 4 sides. They're like guarding her, okay, and she's got a microwave. So all the other prisoners like, what in the world's going on? You think they're guarding her from the other prisoners? I don't think that's the case at all. They're guarding her because they know Trump's coming. And he's going to have big guys. 101st will freaking back up U.S. Marshals, okay?
Can you imagine that, bro? The 101st coming in.
Helicopters. Boom, boom, boom. I see playing Valkyrie off the micro or the speakers.
I kind of actually would rather see what's the one they play on Apocalypse Now coming in when is that it?
Flight of the Valkyrie.
Yeah,
oh my
that's
gosh,
right. That's right. I forget the name.
Oh my gosh, that's so. What they would play? No. You know what they play?
What?
Nessun Dorma. Trump's favorite song, right? With Pavarotti. Nobody else sings it like Pavarotti. I mean, I've heard some just amazing renditions, but you get right down to. I had a stereo at my farm that. It was fortunate the next farmhouse is like half a mile away, right? I'd crank that sucker, and I would listen to stuff like that. I just loved it. You can crank music if it's crystal clear, if it's got the littlest bit of static or overdriven on a speaker, or whatever. It's no fun. But when it's crystal clear, man. I'm telling you, I just love to crank it. 2001: A Space Odyssey, all sorts of things like that. But anyway, Tina, we have to pray through. If we don't see Tina out, pretty doggone quick, I think we have to go back to calling the White House. White House responded to the calls. The calls were all trending for almost a month. Tina, I think it's pretty close at this point, and there's a bunch of reasons why, and I think it's going to be tied to what Trump's doing with the national election emergency to go in there and just take control of the situation. But it's a little bit early. That's why he got the federal investigations going. They've got her well secured. Everybody knows we're coming for her. She knows we're coming for her. Okay. It may be blindingly slow, but she's a pawn in somebody's bigger game. The trick there is, in chess, if a pawn makes it all the way to the other side of the table, they become a queen. And Tina's almost to the other side of the board. If she is out, intact, alive, safe, she becomes a queen on this chessboard, this elections chessboard, and she will have more power than all the other players except, another queen. And she will be very useful in this war. We're about to, and that's why they don't want her loose. They did not want her out. So anyway, I've got someone else waiting for me. I've got to get to it. I wish we'd had done better early in the show. I'd love to have shown you guys the sunset here. I don't know what the issue was, but maybe we check that for the next one.
Yeah.
There's going to be other talks to the country coming shortly. This was almost a test, and when it does, let's have this figured out so we can do it live together. Does that work for you?
Absolutely. I just appreciate you taking the time and Thank your beautiful wife for us giving you to us for a little while tonight. It's been a couple hours.
Well, she could have just given me a cookie. I'd have talked to you, but she could give me a cookie. She gave you guys me. I didn't get a cookie though.
Well, just send over her phone number to me. Tell her to stop by and get you a cookie at 7-Eleven. I'll Zelle her the money, and that way I bought you.
All right. She won't let me eat cookies from 7-Eleven. They have to.
Okay, go to a luxury cookie.
I eat the dreamiest cookies anybody in the country gets to eat.
What are they? Where?
They are the dreamiest. Oh, they're my dreams.
Oh.
But I can sure taste them in the middle of the night.
Well, I'm the guy that wakes up in the morning with crumbs through his bed. I do that. Shit, and go to bed. I'm like, I can't help it. I gotta eat something like this before I go to sleep.
Oh my gosh! If there was crumbs in the bed, I'd have to get the vacuum out in the middle of the night.
I just pick the crumbs up and eat them in the morning. It's been like that for years.
Oh yeah. Well, there's a certain logic to that. If it was a good cookie, I'd eat the crumbs in the morning. Yeah. All right. Hey, I appreciate getting a chance to talk to your folks. I got a blast, but let's do this again. There's going to be something else coming very shortly. Let's talk in that time frame and get this right on the recorder.
All right, I'll hunt you down. Travel safe out there, brother, and stay alert. Much love to you from the audience over here, Patriot Streetfighter.
All right, thanks, Scott. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, they're happy you were here. Much love to you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you get Tomahawk jumping in as usual. Isn't it effed up how he knows? I haven't hung up the phone yet. Haven't even said. Patriot Streetfighter out, but he always knows. Look at him. I want camera time. At the very end, he always knows it's time. It's my turn. Before he hangs up or shuts off that camera, I'm getting in. You see people over there? Say hi. Say hello. Look over there. Say hi. Look. Say hi, everybody. All right. Anyways. All right, little man. Ladies and gentlemen, for Juan, Sav, and myself, thanks for popping in tonight on this last minute live. And on behalf of me and little Tomahawk here, I will say the Patriot Streetfighter out. Have a good night, folks.